Wow, thank you very much for that very thoughtful introduction. To my nominators, including the most thoughtful Mount Sinai executive and senior leadership team, to MPP Jessica Bell, and to the CPSO, I am truly honored by this moment you have created for me. I hope through the collective visionary purpose we have at Sinai Health and Tammy Latner Center for Palliative Care, I am able to respectfully honor your time and efforts in this process by improving with our team the actual caring that happens in medicine. I share this award with my exceptional palliative care team at the Tammy Latner Center for Palliative Care and the most humane carers and healers I've ever known, the frontline nursing and allied health who work at both Sinai Health, home care, and long-term care. To the many thousands of patients and families who I've met on this journey, who have both survived and died in these years, allowing me into the beauty of your hearts and souls, paradoxically, has helped me heal through experiencing your love, your sense of community, and your human endurance. I will do everything I can to honor all that you have lost by helping to rebuild a system of caring that not only considers you, but finally centers around you and your family values and needs. I do have a renewed, perhaps obsessive optimism about the future, though. In bearing witness to the anguish of the most vulnerable people and communities, I've also been exposed to the deepest forms of love, human connection, and compassion. In the early days of the pandemic, my mother and father, and then father, were both hospitalized in different hospitals than the one I work in. Simultaneously, their acute care, including their critical care journeys, lasted almost 6 months. Initially, my lean to the work during the pandemic was my way of coping with a sense of helplessness. Those who worked closely with me knew I literally walked around with my parents in my pockets so I could be with them virtually while also doing the important relationship-based caring that I felt so strongly about in the hospital. As I watched my parents slowly fade away through very strictly enforced no visitor policies initially, and then with what I call distant caring, I started to feel differently in that I started to feel I had a purpose in my work. I thought I had achieved trifecta. I remained a strong role model mom to my 3 daughters. I was the ultimate caregiver to my beloved parents, and I had a purpose in my job of caring for the most vulnerable at work. This trifecta all worked for me, of course, until it didn't. I recall with hyperacuity a moment in late January 2021. I noticed early that day that when I looked at the board in the ICU, the names were very different. I could feel the stories of those names. They were names that I grew up with in my community. My eyes darted around the critical care unit, room by room in that moment until I realized it was my community. I felt my brothers, my sisters, uncles, and aunties were all in these rooms, critically ill, some dying, all in their 30s to 60s. I actually couldn't breathe. I knew I was having a panic attack in that moment, although I had never had one before. I needed to get out of there. I needed to escape. Like many other mothers with service jobs, we all have a place we go for quiet. For many of us, there's this single place that exists, and it is our cars. I found myself there in the moments of disillusionment. I had actually driven myself to Little India on Gerrard Street, where my family business resides. My memories of bright lights and celebrations, now an eerily quiet street, only amplified my disillusionment in that moment. I could literally feel a gravitational pull downwards. I was really familiar with this force. I knew it very well during those very isolating years in my teens when I immigrated to Canada, when I felt invisible and unimportant. This time, though, I had some life experience and tools to get me out of this situation. Instead of choosing the short-term approach of pulling away and escaping, I pulled my people in. I started with a single phone call to my original palliative care mentor and sponsor, Dr. Russell Goldman. I then turned to my colleague and friend, Dr. Kavita Algu, and then to my Temi Latner co-pilot, my long-term care co-pilot, Dr. Nathan Stahl. In those conversations, I remember asking the hard questions. Did I go my whole life ignoring the obvious signs that we live constantly in oppression? Are my parents safe away from their families in a hospital? What do I say to my 3 girls to prepare them for the future? I sat in that car on Gerrard Street for 4 hours. And every time I hung up the phone with one of my colleagues from Sinai, I immediately got a phone call from another. Our hospital palliative care team, several physicians, including the leaders of the ICU, the chief of medicine. I didn't realize it then, but I knew it now. I know it now, that very first phone call I made, that I was leaning into the supports that I knew existed. It created the most organic, organized network of loving and peer support that everybody deserves. After 4 hours of this deliberate resuscitation of my soul, I returned to the ICU, walking every step differently, with more clarity, with more purpose. While I had used words like solidarity, collaboration, presence, non-abandonment throughout the pandemic, I had new words in my purpose: love, deep love, through human connection, unconditional support of one another so that we can endure in an infinitely challenging world. My network pulled me up, actually quite forcibly, through endurance, in uncomfortable conversations, through gift baskets, through flowers, through virtual women in medicine nights, through team nominations, science fiction novels, and takeout dinners sitting on my porch at the end of the day. In that process of accepting their love, I helped them too, and I knew it, and I felt it. We were going to heal, not as individuals, individual doctors or individual nurses, but as a community, through the deliberate practice of love and connection with one another. We were choosing humanism over escapism, connection over detachment and depersonalization. We were going to do all of this so that we could love and care authentically for the most vulnerable patients and families. To end, I will share the words of my dear Nova, whose soul will forever bless me and our team. I heard you. You said, Lung inu du tu mao, to mo, which in Vietnamese is all doctors are gentle mothers who deeply love in their caring and healing of all those who need it most. Thank you.